Hello, this is the progress report for tutorial 1, object-oriented design. Um, for the first part of the Unity Essentials pathway, they kind of introduce you to Unity, setting up the hub, downloading a version, um, and making a micro game. And the one I made was the Lego micro game. It's new for me, and it's pretty nice. And you'll see me look away from the screen, and that's because I have 2 monitors now. But here is the published version for me. I created that enemy that looks towards you and fires quite accurately. You can blow that up, but there's nothing over there. And then otherwise you can beat the game by collecting the green bricks and going through the level as they walked you through. Like I made this bridge here, and I created the elevator with functionality, so if you touch it, it will rise like this. And then once you get to the very end here, when completion, you collected all the green bricks. I also changed the text in the top left, and that was everything they wanted you to do before publishing. And so if we move on from there, I'll show you my mission summary, and you can see here that I completed the quiz. I got 6 out of 6, and I did explore a micro game because they have you submit your progress as you do it. So if we jump ahead to explore Unity, it was quite a lot more. You're working with primitives in 3D, you're doing audio, 2D, and so I'd like to show you the first thing we did in Unity Hub, or the Unity editor, because I did not upload this version. So you're supposed to create a structure, which you can see. It's kind of dark. You also put a light in and I made it look kind of spooky. And this was the first time we worked with physics. So we set up rigid bodies, and it wanted you to try different shapes and work with different materials and physics materials. The one weird thing I noticed is if you resize a sphere and make it oblong, it doesn't quite change that much, at least not in my scenario. And in the back, there's a brick cube that bounces. And then another interesting thing about the physics is, at least how I have it set up, it's consistent every time. Anyways, if we exit out of this, I'll move on to what we actually did submit here. You have a rolling ball and the floor is lava, and the goal is to not land in the lava. So I created several platforms at different angles. The ball kind of rolls to the left and then right, and then it evens out on a trampoline, and then it ends up in a cage. When I finished working on this, I also added a spinning platform because they gave you a few scripts on how to add movement and rotation, but either that broke after I compiled it or I forgot to include it. But there's more opportunities for you to see something like that in action, which I will show you in a bit. Once you did that, we moved to audio, and they give you a little demo to work with, and I will swap over to that. So to submit this, they wanted you to add an object outside that moves, creating a Doppler sound effect. And what I chose is Japanese voice lines that I found in the store. And there's 2 of them that fly by back and forth using a script where they'll move left and right as fast as they can. And there they go. I forgot to turn on the audio. And they're kind of quiet, but you can hear a faint sound go by. I'll get really close. So the music is, you can hear it from anywhere, but the voice lines that fly by, there's a certain radius, and the same thing applies to this pot of boiling water. There's the sound of it bubbling, but you have to get close enough to hear it. So that's what I did for the real-time audio. And then for the real-time 2D, you went and created just a little pachinko type mini game. And so I'll show that off as well. And you also used assets for this. So I decided meteorites were landing on Earth, but they're lighter than clouds. And will you be saved by the magic hats that'll catch them? And the answer is not quite. Maybe if you live more to the west, you will. It's quite simple. This is pretty much the same as the rollerball, except you're in 2D. So the physics is all handled by their rigid body 2D instead. And the collisions are kind of simpler to work with. So if I show my summary for this, there was also the real-time industry. For this part, they've shown off all you could do, not just making games. So I published both of those projects, and for the quiz, I passed it 12 out of 13. I wonder if we can see what I got wrong. No, I cannot. But I'll move on. The last part was quite easy. You did not have to publish anything or show it off. You just heard from people, and the goal was to make a plan. So instead of a game, what you had to submit was an action plan, which I will bring up now. So the last thing I worked on outside of college was the werewolf game jam that you hosted, but I still want to make an RPG, and I want to get more in depth with the details and the functionality. I don't want it to be limited by a certain device. I wanted to try experimenting with mobile and maybe controller support for an Xbox or something. And if we go down here, you'll see my little plan. So the first thing is the learning how to use Unity. I did that already. You can check that off. Make a good RPG. I already have the basics, so I'd like to build off of that in my free time. And then I also wanted to try out a bit more of what the tile maps can offer. I've only worked with the square tiles, but there's also hexagonal and isometric. And that would be really neat for an overworld. And then I also wanted to learn how to make AI. And they've done that a little bit before, but all I've ever done is make an enemy chase you. And in an RPG, there's a lot more than that. I wanted to work on an algorithm specifically for doing the most damage at any opportunity. And then finally, I would move on to controls and see what I can do with that. So this is it for tutorial 1. Thank you. Hello again. Just wanted to add on a bit to the end. I realized I missed a few things. The first thing I missed was the quiz at the end of the last section, Learn Unity. And I got 4 out of 4 on that. And then there's one other thing worth mentioning. They do spend a lot of time talking about how you develop bigger projects and stay productive. And they have a work cycle. And I just want to mention that because it might be relevant when it comes to game jam time. If people are working together or they're trying to stay on top of things, then it might be nice to try and group up the work they need to do into each phase. The only phase we wouldn't really worry about would be post-production and the maintenance of the product after you complete it. Because once the game jam is over, it's over. Anyways, that's it.